I had wanted to, I thought I was finished with this preparing for growth. And yet Father came back and says, we're not quite done. A couple weeks ago, I was coming out of the house, and it was, it had been warm for so long, and all of a sudden it was cold again. And he told me, this is what we were talking about. And so, this is what we were talking about. It seems like it was a long time ago that we had winter. When in fact it hasn't been very long at all. There are those people who actually enjoy winter. For them, winter looks like this. For me, winter looks like this. January 2016. It's one of those situations. This was the year I decided I was going to get me a snowblower. Because I was not going to shovel that out again.
We have a very long driveway.
Yes. And so, but there are those, but see, this is what winter looks like. And so we find ourselves, when we're stuck with this, looking at the weather forecast. This is our weather forecast for this week. And I look across to you, you think, it's not bad. The low temperatures down here are perfectly fine. But when we're in the dead of winter, we find ourselves looking at a different kind of map. We're looking to see what's the future going to hold? What's the weather trends going to be? And so we find ourselves excited that, wow, in March to May, we're going to be average, slightly above average. And it seemed like we were going to, because March started off a little rough, but then as we got toward the end of the month, it was getting really rather nice. I was doing my annual countdown to spring. How many of you look forward to spring and you start counting down? When's the first day of spring? We look at Groundhog Day and think, 6 weeks more bad weather, 6 weeks or it will come early. Well, come what may. When the first day of spring is 6 weeks from Groundhog Day, so it really doesn't matter. But in that countdown to spring, what I look for, the first thing I find are the snowdrops. They come up, and I was so excited when I saw them. I found them growing down in my backyard, because I'd never had them before. But now I look for them. I didn't leave them down in my backyard. They're by my house now, so when I pull in the driveway, I can see them. That's the first sign. Then we have the crocuses come up. And while they don't last but just a week or so, there is such an excitement as we're counting down. Spring is coming. The daffodils start coming up. And we know there's this excitement. Just like the ground is warming up, our excitement levels are rising. The daffodils come up and they start blooming. The robins come home. And we are so excited. The trees start blooming. And that's what this spring has been like. It seemed like it was coming so quickly. All of a sudden, everything was out in bloom. It seemed like it was going to be the beginning of a very early and fruitful season. But then comes the frost. Everything was out. My apple trees were blooming. My peach trees were finishing up. The pear trees were in full bloom. And I walked out of the house a couple weeks ago, and it was probably 3 weeks ago at this point, and it had frosted. What happens when it frosts? Stuff happens. While there are those who might think it pretty, and indeed, as you're driving down and you see the frost that's frozen on the trees and whatnot, it looks very lovely. But with that frost comes damage. Those tender blossoms that are out there can be damaged. And when they are damaged, we know that there's going to be a problem with the fruit. But sometimes it's not just the damage to the blossoms. Sometimes there's going to be a frost like this one in Florida. There's structural damage to the trees. So you can have different types of frost, different types of damage. And so I started thinking, what causes frost? And again, I don't want to get into this scientific description of everything. I went looking, and it started showing me all of these, it showed me all these crystals, showing me all of these chemical things with all of the lines and things going up and around. And I talk about dew points and whatnot. And I understand that in the summertime we have dew that sets, and in the wintertime we have dew that sets. But in the wintertime, the dew can become frost. But what causes it? In the simplest of terms, it is simply a sustained dip in temperatures. We look at the forecast and we wonder and we see there was that one weekend that it was dipping down into the upper 30s. And again, I didn't want it to, again, 38. I think we're still safe. 36, 34. And you wake up, you go outside, and there's frost on the cars. There's frost on the grass. There's frost on the trees. But what do we know? What do we know about frost? We know that it's not unusual. For this time of year, it's not unusual. You say, now Mike, it's May. The almanac says that the latest frost, the date of the last killing frost, is April 27th. How many of you feel confident putting tomatoes in the ground in May? I don't. I wait until toward the end of May before I even begin to put something in the ground like that. Because I know that they are fragile. They will not stand up to it. I remember one year in the mid to late 60s, with my family, we always had these gigantic gardens, and everything's planted, everything was up. In June, we had a killing frost and had to replant everything. And where are you going to find tomato plants in June? They're not there. They are not there. But we had to replant the beans, the corn, everything, and which pushed the harvest off a while. It's not unusual for there to be a frost. And while we may see it coming, we can prepare for it, we do everything we can to prevent the damage, we're not going to keep it from happening. Now, there are those people in Florida who have their strawberry fields and their orange groves, and those people who have vineyards. They will go out and they'll put in what's called munch pots, and they'll burn and they'll fill the fields with all of these burning pots that's putting out smoke. And in so doing, they can keep the frost from settling somewhat. But they do everything they can, but they can't keep the frost from happening. And we know that the harvest is likely going to be affected. Now, there are those points in time when you have a light frost and there's not a whole lot that goes on. And those are the kind of things that we hope for. But what is the effect? What is the effect of frost? For the fruit tree, okay, for the actual plant, it means a diminished harvest. I never mind that my pear trees get frosted. Because those foolish things are covered in blossom. And if all of that fruit came on, it would not be a good thing for the tree, but you also don't get the quality of fruit that you need. But for those people who are dependent upon the harvest, those people who are dependent upon the frost, dependent upon the crop, the frost can be devastating. The frost can change a person's livelihood. It is a big setback. And for those of us who have suffered this kind of loss, we start asking ourselves, where was God when the frost was sitting? Why didn't he stop it? How can he let this happen? You see where I'm going with this? Isn't he supposed to care about us? Doesn't he care that my garden, that my fruit trees, that all of these things that I put a lot of time into, doesn't he care? As we make this transition from talking about frost and flames. We're talking about the things that come on into our lives. When the frost hits us, frost is like a false start. This is a point in time, these are those kind of circumstances where you start laying in plans and you have this, you're planning on doing this, you're planning a trip, you're going on vacation, you're planning time off, but then something goes wrong and it gets canceled. A forgotten promise. There are points in time where we have people who make a promise to us. It's what Mary Poppins calls a pie crust promise. Easily made, easily broken. But for those of us who have been counting on somebody keeping their word, it is a letdown for us. A disappointing outcome. When we have invested a lot of time into a project, when we have invested a lot of time and energy into a relationship, into a job, into those kind of things, and it just doesn't turn out the way we're expecting, how do you feel? It feels like a personal setback. It's a disappointing outcome. And then there's always that unwelcome intrusion. When you go to the doctor and you get a bad report, they give you extremely bad news. When you go to work, and they say, we're cutting back. And that means you. When there's a fire or a flood or some other natural disaster that comes along and it takes out all those things that you have. That is like frost in our lives. And this, whenever those kind of things happen, this is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves absolutely delighted with God. Sure. I mean, that's the way I feel. It's not. This is the face we want others to see. Oh, yes, God knows what I'm going through. But in the meantime, how are you actually feeling? You are not delighted with God. You are disappointed with God. And I know there's not a single person here who's willing to admit, I have been disappointed with God. Well, I have been disappointed with God. Because, no matter what our relationship with Him is, we feel like He should be looking out for our best interests. He should be preventing these things from happening to us. Because that is what His Word says. As I am disappointed with God, I remind Him, Father, your Word says that I should cast all my cares upon you because you care for me. And if you truly cared for me, this wouldn't happen. Because we treat them like those people around us. If you truly cared, you wouldn't have done this. We say, your word says, don't be anxious about anything. I know there's a frost coming, and I'm doing everything I can, but don't be anxious about anything. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, Father, I've been praying about this for a long time. With thanksgiving, present your request to God. We throw the word back at Him. The word says to delight myself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. But what part of this is what we listen to, that we pay closest attention to? This is what we see. This is what we hear. This is what we want to believe. He will give you the desires of your heart. Leaving off the first part, we find ourselves asking, where did this come from? When these setbacks, when these turns in our lives, when these circumstances change, where did that come from? Sometimes it's from a loss of dreams. I want to share with you just a few stories this morning about different points in my life that I have been disappointed, that I have been let down, that God didn't meet my expectations. Summer of 1981. I've told you about the summer of 1980 when I came home from Bible college for the first year. Fully grown up, I'm sure. When you're 20, you know it all. My stepfather had different ideas, and I spent that summer setting fence posts. And I'm thinking, this was in the middle of a recession. This is when the beginning of the Reagan years. The recession was setting in, just coming out of the 1970s. Jobs are hard to find, and no matter where I looked, there wasn't any. Somewhere in 1981, I found a job. I was mowing a cemetery out in James Ferry. A friend of mine had gotten the job, and it's a pretty large cemetery, and she asked me if I would help her. I said, sure. I need money. And so I'm mowing the cemetery, but there's not a lot of joy to be found trimming around tombstones. And this is a very full cemetery, and it was extremely difficult. I had bigger and better ideas. Lord, that was my home, after all. I lived there already. And some friends of mine and I decided we were going to go down early, get a construction job, get an apartment, and be ready for school when it started. And I could leave that cemetery far behind and not worry about it ever again. We had all of our plans put in place, everything ready. I gave a call the week before. We're not going to be able to do this. What do you mean we're not going to do this? We're not able. We can't make it work. And so here I am. All of these dreams, all of this, I was escaping. And now, all the air comes out. Out of that came something in my journal, and it became a song. And that is this. My mind is made up, my feet on the road. I thought I knew where I wanted to go. I had it all planned, each detail was laid. Then something happened to wreck the plans that I made. And I asked this question, is it your will, or is it my own? Am I following that pathway home? I need to know just where I am bound. Mark out the road, Lord, and there I'll be found. I lost a dream, but out of it came something that I like. There's also missed opportunities that come into our lives. There are points in time when there's an opportunity that comes up and you just knew if you just had taken that step. It's like me and back in, I forget how long ago it's been, I was keeping track of Apple stock. It was down to like $14 a share. Thinking, if only I had money at that point in time. But as part of my dream portfolio, if I had bought it then, where would I be now? A missed opportunity. But that didn't affect me because I didn't have any money. This is, we're going to fast forward 3 years. Summer of 1984. I'm out of Bible college, living in Michigan, married to my first wife. We had been youth pastors at Eaton Rapids, Michigan, and felt that urge, the nudge, the unction to move, that it was time for us to do something different. And so we began itinerating and trying out at different churches. And there's a church down here in Martinsburg, West Virginia, over the Panhandle, that we tried out for. And it just felt right. It just felt right. We clicked with the pastor. We got along well with the youth. But the board of that church wanted somebody who could play the piano. And my wife couldn't play the piano. And while the pastor would have chosen us, and the youth group might have chosen us, the board says no. And so we were left in Michigan. It was a missed opportunity. Fast forward 23 years. Marcy and I are living up here in West Virginia. At this point in time, I'm teaching over at Monongah, and we've been doing some very fine things in that school. And the principal said, I want you to follow me. I want you to follow me as the principal here. I says, I don't have my certificate, I don't have my schooling, I don't have it. I said, you'll have to wait until I get that. And she was willing, so I got it all done within a year and a half. And then there was a deanship program that was going on at that point. And so I told her, I said, I have to go into the deanship. And maybe they will place me here. And they did. I was placed as the dean at the two Monongah schools. And it comes down to March. And I'm telling her, I said, you know, in order for me to follow you, you kind of have to leave. And she says, I'm not ready. I was moved from that school to Reedsville, and then subsequently I moved up here to White House. But I had worked and planned to work this in, and it didn't happen. 10 years later, this is just very recently, I had the opportunity to go into the board office with the understanding that the director was going to be retiring in December. December comes, December goes. And she says, I'm not ready.
She's still there.
I'm not ready. And you think, I've done all of this. You see, in my mind, I've already made all the plans. I've already set it in place. There are points and times in our lives where we have devastating losses. Devastating losses where we have a loss of a relationship. Where a marriage or a long-term relationship has gone awry. There's points in time where we suffer a loss, where a job that we've had for such a long time all of a sudden isn't there anymore. You go to the doctor and you get that devastating news. You only have 6 months to live. You lose someone who is very, very close to you. You lose a loved one. Through very tragic circumstances or over the course of time after an illness. These are the effects of frosts. And so we ask, how severe can a frost be? And there's actually two different kinds that we have. We have a light frost. A light frost is where it's just a light coating on things. Everything turns white, but it doesn't last long. It burns off. And so with a light frost, the fear of loss actually becomes nothing. We fear there's going to be a problem, but nothing really develops. So there's a lot of anxiety that goes along with that. Or it could be that what appeared to be total devastation isn't sudden, isn't total, isn't devastation. More alarm than effect. And there's often no lasting damage with a light frost. Those circumstances in my life, or the circumstance in Florida, was a light frost. And this is what I learned. Though things keep changing and everything's new, I need to know, Lord, that I'm following you. Though plans have been made, you're still in control. I'm totally yours, Lord. You may change them all. Is it your will, or is it my own? Am I following that pathway home? I need to know just where I am bound. Mark out the road, Lord, and there I'll be found. We lay in these plans. We have it all laid out, and then God Himself intervenes. But through this thing, we find out that we're actually more resilient than we thought we were. While that disappointment has come and gone, we are far more resilient than we thought. We thought we would never survive. And then there's a killing frost. A killing frost is that deep, deep freeze that will often lead to severe pruning. In those groves of Florida, and I won't forget this because it was so astonishing, those deep freezes would kill entire trees. And if it didn't kill the entire tree, they would lock them back to where there's hardly anything left, hoping that there'd be lightning in the trunk that would spring forth again. In 1983, they had a devastating frost, and they cut the trees back. 1984, another one. By 1989, when they had another deep freeze, the groves were oftentimes gone, and they tore out all of the trees. A severe pruning. These are life-changing events. These are things that turn your life around. You were not looking for it. You were not expecting it. You may have seen it on the horizon and everything you could to avoid it. But there it was. And your life will never be the same again. It can be a loss of livelihood. For those people, those orange growers, it takes years for a grove to develop. And many of them couldn't handle the loss. And so they removed the trees, sold the land, and what grew in their place? Houses, neighborhoods. The campus, around the campus that I went to in Florida, it was surrounded on three sides by orange groves. So I'm very familiar with this. And so I can watch and see the effects of these events and see how the orchard grower would try to save the orchard. When I went back down there again, one whole area was gone. It sprung up in houses. Across the street, they all disappeared. Houses. One directly attached to right beside the campus. Now, all houses. A loss of livelihood. It requires starting over. And there are points in time in your life and in mine where there has been such a devastating loss. And you do have to start over because you don't, what was your normal life is no more. And you have to build a new one. Find a new normal. A new normal that includes this tragedy. But you know what? We find out that we're far more resilient than what we thought we were. As we walk through those months, as we walk through those subsequent years, we find that we can find new life. We find ourselves rethinking harvest. We know that frost will affect the harvest. And when these circumstances come into our lives, we do have to stop and think, what is God doing in my life? What fruit am I going to be producing? All of us, we dream of a bountiful harvest. We want our lives to count for something. We want it to be meaningful. We want to be this guy with all of this fruit pouring out of our lives. We have talked so many times about fruit trees, how it does not consume its own fruit. Your life is not meant for you. Your life is meant to be poured out and to be given away for others. That life that is found in that seed is reproduced elsewhere. We want a bountiful crop, and so we work hard, and we fill our lives with all of this busyness, with all of these plans that we put in place. And just like this apple tree is very, very full. And we look at that apple tree. That is a fantastic looking harvest. But what happens when there gets to be too much? I can't tell you how many times I've had to go out and prop my peach trees up because they are too heavy. I've driven by orchards and things. I've driven by neighbors. I've seen trees that have absolutely split and have fallen apart because there's too much. In your life and in my life, I have been in this place. I'm thinking, I am so very productive. I'm doing so much. But the tree is under strain, ready to break. Sometimes there's just too much, and we crack. We strive for more and more and more. And then we get upset with God because something happens. My plan isn't the one being followed. We're upset with Him. But you know what? Father has His own plans for our lives. Father has His plan for our lives. And that's why whenever I was 20 years old and I penned those words, the plans have been made, you're still in control. I'm totally yours, Lord. You can change them all. That is that business of resting in Him. Father has His own plan, and He knows our beginning from our end. He knows all of those events from eternity to eternity. All of these things are in Him, and He knows. We tend to view frost as a bad thing. I know when I have got my beans in, I know when I've got my tomatoes in, and they're calling for a frost, I am busy I'm dragging out every drop cloth I have and draping, and hoping the wind doesn't blow them off, because if it does, all is lost. Now, while I may suffer a little bit of frost damage around the edges, I'm normally able to save the bulk of it. Frosts are not a bad thing. Let's go back. Summer of 1981. Had I left that summer and gone to Florida according to my plan, I would have missed an opportunity that I could never have seen coming. 1982, when I came home, still not a lot of jobs. I'd be very careful because of financial aid and everything else. When you're in college and those years, financial aid was a very important piece. I mowed the cemetery again by myself, so I got $100 a week, which in 1982 was a lot of money. But you know what? I got to meet a man by the name of George Jefferson, and no, we were not moving on up. But he was a quirky fellow. He was probably late 70s, there around. He was the treasurer of the cemetery, and so he took care of it. But he became a mentor in my life, and I could talk to him about most anything. I didn't have a father person that I could talk to. It had to be someone who was extended from my family, and he became such a good friend. I would have missed that opportunity. I thought the cross was a bad thing, but Father had His own plan at that point in time. The position in Martinsburg. Had I gotten that position, had that position been given to me, I would have been in such a mess. 6 months later, a few months later, actually, my wife was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. Went to the hospital for 30 days. We were in Michigan, where family was. I had insurance. And a month's stay in 1985 was still over $250,000. And I would have been strapped with debt. I ended up owing $0. I paid $5 for a prescription. but the insurance covered everything else. My wife was able to spend time at home with family. We were not someplace far away from everyone else. But God knew. I was so devastated. I thought this was the end. That as a youth pastor, I was done for. I didn't have the skills necessary. But Father was protecting me. He had His plans. And while that was a devastating loss, while that was a killing frost in my life, this preserved me. My stint as a dean of students, I thought I wanted to spend the rest of my career over in Monongah. I love the place. And I'd still be there today, most likely. But had I remained there, I would have missed an opportunity to develop so many different relationships. I was put over in Reedsville, and I have so many good friends and people over there that I know. I had the opportunity to come over here to Whitehall and be a part of this community. I've been able to go to East Park and develop relationships there. I've been able to go to over at JM where I am now. I would have missed so many opportunities to pour into different people's lives had I gotten that position. But it's what I thought God had for me. But God had different plans. And even here, after I've spent all of these years in Title I, expecting to move into the directorship there, had I received that position, I would not be here this morning. I would not have had time or the opportunity to do what I'm doing now. And I'm telling you, this is what God's plan for my life has been. As I have walked with Him, and He has deposited these things in me, it is something I can share. It may seem devastating. It may seem like, this is not right. But this is God's truth. This is God's truth. And until you can, this is Ecclesiastes, there is a time for everything and a season for everything that can be in heaven. And it's talking about there being a time for sowing and reaping, a time for living and dying, a time for rejoicing, a time for weeping. There's a time in each of our lives. And as we walk through them, as that resiliency builds in our lives, we know that there is a season for everything. And whatever the opportunities that come, whatever dreams that get crushed into the carpet, we know that God is holding my life right here. He is holding me. And this becomes a truth. Here is what the Spirit says. When we set the expectations for the harvest of our own lives, we are limiting Father's provision for us. When we are determined that we're going to do it our way, we remove ourselves and we limit what God is able to do with us. He does give us the desires of our heart when we delight ourselves in Him. When we think about that word delight, we think of it being happy, being joyous about. It's this warm, fuzzy feeling about being delighted, about being pleased with something. But that's not what this word means. In the Hebrew, this word means to be soft and delicate. And I said, Spirit, what does that mean? To be soft and delicate in Him, in His hands. This is what Father showed me. We all think that, I am the potter, He is the potter, I am the clay. Actually, it's probably the other way I started saying. We want to be the potter and Him the clay. But we say, I'm just clay in God's hands. And we want it to be true. But you know what? In order to get to this, we have to start with this. It starts with a lump. And that potter has to stick his thumbs down in there and open the hole. God is willing to get His hands dirty for us. God is willing to extend that energy and extend that that in order to do work in our lives, he's willing to roll up his sleeves and to become and to get his hands dirty. But you know, in order to get to this pot, he has to open up a hole big enough in our lives that he can get his hands in. And that's not pleasant.
Hey Mike, photo on the right,
Yes.
look at the image of the shape of his hands. It's a heart.
Yes. As he gets his fingers down in our lives and he's making up a space, he can truly form us. But if we decide what we're going to have, what we're going to be, we limit what God is able to do in our lives. After there's a time and there's a season for everything, Solomon goes on. He says, what do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has placed on the human race, and I have felt the burden God has placed on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in his time. And then this pops out. He has also set eternity in the human heart. We have an indwelling God. After Jesus came and he died and was resurrected, he went to the Father and he says, and where I go, there you may be also. He says, my Father and I will come and dwell with you. And so inside of us we have the Spirit of the living God. We have God himself living inside of our spirit. And he has set eternity in our hearts. We have him living there. Yet, not a single one of us can fathom the things he is doing in our lives, the things he has done from beginning to end. We're stuck in the moment. We're stuck in the present. He sees it from all. Paul says it like this: eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor has it even entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him. There are difficult days in our lives. There are difficult circumstances. There is a frost that will come in. It can be a light frost. It can be a devastating frost. But God remains in control. He has prepared those things for us, as well as everything comes after. So as we are rethinking our harvest, there are points in time that we do have to adjust our expectations. We have to adjust. Life is not going to turn out the way I planned it. I have to realign my priorities. I have to determine what is important and what isn't. I'm having to realign. And then I have to actively rest. Jesus said it this way. He says, I only do the things I see my Father do. It is up to us then to adjust our expectations. There are going to be points in time when God, in his infinite wisdom, will bring these devastating, these difficult circumstances into our life. That's going to wreck our own plans. There's going to be points in time where those things that we thought were important have been ripped away, torn away, or just simply drifted away. We determine, we realign what's important, and we rest on him. Though plans have been made, you're still in control. I'm actively resting. When the frost comes, it can be very difficult to endure. It is not comfortable, and you don't want it to last long. We bundle ourselves up against it and hope for the best. We endure. What is God's plan, God's purpose for our lives? Whether you are a young tree, whether you are a middle-aged tree, like me, or whether you're a tree that's been around for quite a while, They all only have one purpose. And their purpose is to produce fruit. But inside the fruit is the seed. From the blossom stage to the harvest stage. That plant knows no fussing, it knows no worrying, and it knows no struggle. We have a lot to learn from these trees. You see, it really is just a matter of participating or manufacturing. Doing what God's doing, or doing what we think God is doing. We accept what He's doing in our lives without resisting, without disputing, without contending. What's that all about? Where did this come from? We react without these three things. So, whether we are enduring a light frost, because there is just a light frost on the ground over here, and there's not going to be a lot of damage, there's going to be some, not a lot, or whether it is a devastating frost. There are those growers, this is a vineyard, and they do this in the strawberry fields. They'll turn the sprinklers on because under the ice actually acts as an insulator, and they can minimize loss. They don't negate loss. They minimize it. So whether it is a light frost or a devastating frost, or even whether you have to start all over, with starting over, there's new growth. And for those of us who have endured these circumstances, there is new growth. And for those of us who have had those light frosts and have had our missing opportunities, we have new opportunities for God to do and to work in our lives. It's an opportunity. The Word says, Jesus says this, I am the real vine. My Father is the vine dresser. He removes any of my branches which are not bearing fruit, and He prunes away every branch that does bear fruit to increase its yield. No matter what happens, you're being pruned. I am the vine itself, and you are the branches. It is the man who shares my life and whose life I share who proves fruitful. For the plain fact is, apart from me, you can do nothing at all. We don't like that one. If we had the opportunity to take our Sharpie, take that one out. The man who does not share my life is like a branch that is broken off. Remember how those branches get broken sometimes? It's when there be too much stuff. The branch is broken off and withers away. He becomes just like the dry sticks that we pick up and use for firewood. But if you live your life in me and my words live in your hearts, if you live your life in me, and if my words are in your hearts, you can ask whatever you like, and it will come true for you. I struggle with that, but it's a if and then statement. This is how my Father will be glorified, in your becoming fruitful and being my disciples. So, while you may not like it, the frosts in our lives have their purpose. Light or heavy. These events are not unusual. Just like a frost this time of year, not unusual. And though we may see them coming and do our best to prepare or avoid them, we can't keep them from happening. And these events will likely affect the harvest in our lives. I ran upon this story as I was preparing for this morning. A very interesting story. 33 years old, a woman, 2 small children, diagnosed with cancer. By the time they found it, it was everywhere. It was in her bones. It had just progressed into her brain, into her skull. But once she got the diagnosis, she said she would not let it define who she was. There's a video out there, dying is not death. And in listening to her, she says that it does not define who she was. She allowed Christ to define her. And she was able to, during the time that she had, was able to speak to hundreds of or thousands of people. And her story, her videos are online. And she's still speaking to us today. She says, a God who sees my suffering but is unable, or worse, unwilling to spare me. A God who sees my suffering but allows it. We find ourselves here. This is what we know. My God is able to save me, and He will. But will save me from what? From a life without Him. It's not saving her from her disease. It's saving her from a life without Him. It's a matter of participating rather than manufacturing. She only had 5.5 months. And as she's speaking here, it had already progressed into her brain. She had just gone to the doctor and had a PET scan to see if it had gone into her brain, because she knew the time was winding down. But she was determined to tell as many people as possible that her God saves. Her God delivers. Her God heals. And we know that in all these things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. I like the way the Phillips translation puts it. Moreover, we know that to those who love God, those who are called according to His plan, everything that happens fits into a pattern for good. Good meaning that which is for our best interest, but not necessarily by gentle means. Good is for our betterment, not for our comfort. And the Word says, after you have borne these sufferings for a very little while, God Himself, from whom we receive all grace, and who has called you to share His eternal splendor through Christ, will make you whole and secure and strong. All power is His, ever and ever. Amen. Father, I am so grateful for the frosts that You've brought into my life. And while in the middle of it, while it was happening, I'm wondering, I'm asking, Father, where are You in the midst of this? Why is this happening? I have to understand and rest and know that You do all things well. And for those who are called according to Your purpose, as each one of us is, we know that these things work together for good in our lives, that they transform us, that they conform us into the image of Christ. And while we struggle in the moment, we know, Father, that You know all things from beginning to end. Lord Jesus, whatever plans we've made, feel free to change them. Make us conform us into Your image, my Lord. In Your name I pray. Amen. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share today?
I think your message reminds me of this Solomon's writing in Ecclesiastes, where he sought wisdom of all things and lived his life in all kinds of different ways. And then at the very end, in chapter 12, he says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." And I think that's how we're we're supposed to live our lives. Just to fear God.
And so,
Not in like,
not to be afraid, but at the same point in
But
time, we
it's a
trust Him.
reverence. The fear, that he means here is a reverence for God.
Yes, and
And keeping his commands, living the way that he wants us to live, and the only way to know that is by reading his word.
Amen. And fellowshipping with the saints. Wait a minute.
Here's this lesson today really has made me think, just because of what I've been dealing with, you know, the sickness and all, monetary non-transportation. I looked at it as blessings, but I'm thinking too, there's a reason why, you know, that God, and when I think about what I've been through and listen to you, God allows things to happen because He protects us or something, so there's a reason why I'm going through a season right now. What came to mind too, last year, I applied for work like the days I didn't take my mom through caring for people's home down here, and then somebody told me, and I look at it like this, maybe God knew that your mom needed you more because I had my family, because I wanted to be earning extra money. Never thought about that, and then I went and talked to them before the park, but you know what? He's allowing things to happen. And I got frustrated, and I got to the point this week, and I said, you know, I don't know how much longer, and I keep thinking there's a reason why this is happening. It's not my will, it's His will. But I've been positive, I've got a lot of blessings. I've grown so much from like a year ago, I would get more discouraged, but the things I keep going through, I'm thinking, there's a reason. There's a reason why my husband has been sick, it's been hard, because allowed this. And I got to remember, you know, I keep trusting Him and all this stuff, but this all comes together for me. It really, really makes me just remember and think about all this. And it's, you know, and when I heard about that young woman, it's just amazing. It's just really, just wow.
It could have been two different ways. She could have pulled up and just waited it out.
But it's amazing when, and I think when we know how people, they think, when you think about people that I've known have lost, you know, God gives us so much time, it's what we do with it. Whether, you know, we don't guarantee we're gonna be here now, we don't guarantee, we remember that life is so short, and just what we do with it. But this has been a good lesson today.
And
Great message.
it's-
It's one.
I had nothing to do with it.
But you still.
I had something else planned,
But it's a message that it feels like it's directed at each one of us individually. I understand. Okay, but we can all put ourselves in this
Yes.
and ask questions that you ask
Mhm.
during, you know, during your sermon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mom.
In studying for my biology test, I've been looking at a lot of plants, and there's something that I was looking at very specifically, angiosperms and gymnosperms for flowering plants and for non-flowering plants. And as I was looking, God very directly put it on my heart. He's like, the fruit has nothing to do with it. It's the seed.
It's not the aim.
The fruit, the job of the fruit itself, is to protect the seed and to serve as a fertilizer. It's not to serve as anything else other than a means of protecting that seed from harm. And so it's true. So while it's nourishment for other animals and things like that, there's transport for the seed
Yes, and it just simply
to make
releases,
it go somewhere
it
else.
releases the seed.
And it gets so, I feel like we get so hung up on making sure that the fruit is sweet and good and those are the things, and that's not the goal at all with fruit. The fruit is merely there to protect the seed. That fruit is the word, is the spirit, is what is protecting that seed to go far.
The fruit of the Spirit is the character of Christ. And in the character of Christ, we find seed of life. That it is the fruit which draws people. This week, we met last week in our home group, and we talked about how we're going to proceed. As we're going through the summer, we're going to move it to every other week, the second and fourth. Second, fourth is what we said. The second and fourth Wednesdays of the month. And on the second of the month, the second week, we're going to have a meal together. And then on the fourth week, we're going to have more fellowship and Yes.
We're also starting to go to the lake. I think we take break from the meal. Yes, that's what was announced, so.
So, again, I'm glad you guys were listening. I'm not
Yes.
auditory. Show me a picture, I got it. We have, I don't know exactly when, but we're in negotiations for a baby dedication. I'm so excited for that. We also have, at the end of the month, we have our fellowship dinner. We are going to have a picnic. It's going to be up at Cole's house. And in conjunction with that, we walk that. Right up on the hill, right at Betty Cole. And so, that's this is what our plans are in place. So we've got some exciting things coming up. Anyone have anything else you want to share this morning? That seemed fast and furious. Thank you all very much. Next week is Mother's Day. So remember your mom.
And those who are going to be out of town.
I wasn't going to say that.
Well,
You say bye, we're gonna get a group. You wanna do a group?